You know, now that I'm almost done with my degree, I should really get back to making videos. I have such a long list of topics I want to talk about, and there's nothing pressing with any of my favorite franchises right now. And look, DreamWorks has been doing so well over the last couple of years, making all kinds of smart business decisions. Surely there's nothing I have to say about them, right? Right? Alright, fine, I'll talk about it. So, live action remakes of beloved animated films. Yay! Now, these are continually pumped out by Disney. Most of these are going to be going on to Disney Plus now, but the ones that have gone to theaters have made bank. Like, look, we all know Little Mermaid is going to suck, but we do know a lot of people are going to go see it. I mean, Will Smith Genie looked like this in the trailers, and Aladdin still made over $1 billion. So clearly, there's some kind of market for these things. I think more recently, people have turned against live action remakes and view them with disdain, but since Disney is committed to mediocrity in every other aspect of their company, yeah, these live action remakes are going to continue to suck. I don't know why Twitter acts so surprised whenever a new one gets announced, but whatever. But surely, only Disney would do this, we all thought. Blissfully stupid. Well, DreamWorks got a big head after all the praise Puss in Boots: The Last Wish received, and decided to drop a bombshell by announcing that the live action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon was in the works, directed by the same director as the animated films, Dean DuBois. Now, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion, How to Train Your Dragon is a perfect film, not just for animation, but for cinema. Every element just comes together so perfectly to create such a captivating experience. This would be like trying to remake Jaws or The Godfather. Aspects of these films simply cannot be replicated again. And for How to Train Your Dragon, it's even worse because you're adapting the story to a whole new medium. Now, DuBois being attached to the project is very interesting to me. He's been trained and has mostly worked in animation, but he's directed some live action pieces too, and as recently as 2022, so I have no reason to think he'd be too out of his depth. Now, the term adaptation is a loose one. Obviously, this term has been used in other announcements to mean an exact replica of the original film just in live action, but there could be some wiggle room for experimentation, and so I'm going to propose 3 possible routes this adaptation could take, and some would definitely be more interesting than others. Idea number 1, and probably the most likely one, it's just going to be a shot for shot remake of the original film. And look, I really respect Dean DuBois as a director and a writer, and I don't want to be cynical about this, but if being a history major has taught me anything, it's that being cynical is often the safest approach. You can't be too disappointed, and if it's great, then that's a plus. But if they decide that this is the way they want to drag this series into live action, this is the least interesting way they could do it. The only novelty that would come from this is how the dragons would look, and who they cast can be applied to any kind of adaptation. This is the kind of adaptation that will spawn no more discussion than, well, that sucked, and nothing else. Whatever they do, please do not give the Vikings horned helmets. There is no historical evidence the Vikings ever wore horned helmets. If they really want to please the medievalists in the audience, which of course every studio wants to do, then they'll make a really big deal out of the Vikings brooches instead. If you've never studied Viking history before, we actually don't have any written records from the Vikings themselves. We just have records that other people wrote about them hundreds of years later. So most of what we know about the Vikings comes from archaeological evidence, and the Vikings really liked brooches. So there you go. So if you do studying about Vikings, you're going to be looking at a lot of archaeological papers about brooches. Idea number 2. They set it in the modern day. Now this idea may seem stupid, and it is, but the identity of the animated films is really strongly tied to Viking imagery. So setting the story in the modern day would take away from that, true, but also dragons in the modern day would be really cool. There are so many fun and interesting scenarios you can play with in that idea. You can keep a lot of the plot and characters essentially the same, just put it in a modern setting. It could be fun, or a disaster, in which case it will be really fun to laugh at. Now, Dragons: The Nine Realms is currently doing this idea right now. Not very well, I would say, but it is doing it. But let's be real here, this film doesn't care about the canon of the animated series, and quite frankly, even the animated films didn't really care about the canon of the TV shows, so, it's whatever. Also, it could be better for film to go in this direction, because then you could bring in more racial diversity or more ethnic diversity or religious diversity or whatever they want to do. You could take in dragons from different parts of the world. It could be really, really cool. Or it could also really suck. Either way, it could be very interesting. Idea number 3, pulling from the books. Now, this is the option that is the most interesting, at least for me, and it's something that I would like to see happen eventually. For those unaware, the How to Train Your Dragon books are vastly different from the animated films. They're great in their own right. It's my personal favorite book series. I highly recommend it. The books are far more magical than the films ever were. There's magic and prophecy. The dragons have their own language and are sentient creatures. And while there still kind of is the kind of scientific thought behind the logic of everything, like what the films apply to dragons, the books are more like traditional fantasy than the films. And I even have a hard time categorizing the films as fantasy because of the lack of fantasy elements aside from the dragons. Ideally, if we ever got a faithful adaptation of the books, I think it would work best in animation, but regardless, I can still see them taking plot lines and characters from the books, such as Old Wrinkly, Olive and the Treacherous, and the King's Lost Things, and applying them to a live-action film. I think the Lost Things in particular, and the prophecy of Grimbeard the Ghastly, and the tragic history of his family could be really interesting, and it would definitely be very different from the animated films. I could definitely see them trying to work that kind of storyline into a trilogy, maybe. It could be pretty interesting, and it could definitely differentiate it from the animated films and make it appealing to new and old audiences alike. Conclusion. Look, I love dragons, and I'm never going to say no to more movies about dragons being made, but overall, I'm really mixed about this announcement. Look, on the one hand, it will be derivative and terrible, and I can only hope we get really cool merch that releases around the same time based off of the original films. And on the other hand, I don't know, something inside me really wants to be proven wrong and really wants to see this film do something completely unique and interesting. Members of this team have produced great things before in really unique ideas and concepts, so I kind of want to see them do it again, even though this is definitely the most unoriginal way this could possibly happen. But anyway, it will all be dumb and stupid anyway. Well, if you're a fan of the How to Train Your Dragon films, you should just watch the DreamWorks Dragons TV series because it's great and has some of the best moments of the franchise and is one of the best modern cartoons ever made. But nobody talks about it because why would they? But it's great. You should watch it. Just do not watch The Nine Realms. It is horrible. Well, if you want to hear me gush about dragons some more, then you can subscribe to my new channel, Dragonology 101. There'll be new videos up there very soon talking about different dragon species from How to Train Your Dragon. Regarding this channel, I have a lot of plans, and now that I'm almost done with college, I'll be putting more work into this channel. That's right, I'm back. And I know I've said that a lot before, but I really mean it this time. I'm actually back, guys. To everyone who has stuck with me through all the hiatuses and shorter videos, thank you so much for encouraging me. I have really positive viewers, and I'm really grateful for that. I've had some videos that have done really well in the algorithm recently, and I've gotten so many new subscribers from that, and I'm so grateful for it. New videos are coming soon, guys. Thanks for the long wait. Oh, one last thing. You may have noticed I deleted my old Twitter a while ago. It was just stressing me out, but I have an addiction, so I'm back with a new one, and I'm updating the links for all that. Anyway, be sure to follow me on there. Okay, thanks. Bye.